Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents How the Old World Ended, the Anglo-Dutch-American Revolution, 1500 to 1800, by Jonathan Scott. Narrated by David de Vries. Introduction. This book is concerned in the first place with how the Old World ended and only secondly with why. Thus its primary interest is in historical process. In 1649, Gerard Winstanley wrote, "The present state of the old world is running up like parchment in the fire and wearing away." Did the old world erode gradually or burn? The answer given here is both. Comparably, in the present day, incremental climate change is supercharging catastrophic events. The present book has been, it is hoped, a gradual rather than catastrophic development. I first began lecturing on Anglo-Dutch themes in Cambridge in 1997. In Pittsburgh, I taught a course called The Anglo-Dutch Achievement, 1550 to 1750, at both undergraduate and graduate level. In Auckland, that became Anglo-Dutch Early Modernity. Over the years, these courses, focused on the analysis of primary documents, attracted brilliant students who contributed enormously to my thinking about the subject. Some of those documents, like William Temple's Observations, 1673, and An Account of Several Voyages, 1694, continue to play a role here as eyewitness testimony. In 2000, my England's Troubles attempted to set what was still primarily told as a national political story within a comparative European context. This was more than an exercise in historiographical reframing, since what destabilized and toppled the Stuart monarchy and so made possible the English Revolution was fiscal military failure on the European stage, the story in question could not be comprehended as merely national. The most important 17th-century transnational relationship was Anglo-Dutch. When I elaborated on this suggestion in an essay called What the Dutch Taught Us, I was asked to consider a book-length treatment of this theme, but was then tied up by the project that became Commonwealth Principles, 2004. The last sentences of that book read, "Yet concerning the importance of the Anglo-Dutch achievement there seems much less doubt. By the consequences of this, the world would genuinely be transformed." One reviewer commented that assessment of the validity of this claim would need to await a subsequent book explaining what that achievement was held to be. Seeking a different field and fresh material, I subsequently embarked upon the aquatic turn that produced When the Waves Ruled Britannia, 2011. An examination of the use of geographical language in British political writing, this was an attempt to approach the history of ideas in a new way. It furnished an opportunity to read 3 centuries of maritime voyage literature and maps on my front porch in Point Breeze, Pittsburgh, the furthest I had ever lived from the ocean, while flying annually to London to look for manuscripts in the British Library and National Maritime Museum. The book became an analysis of the role of water, riverine, estuarine, maritime, and oceanic, in the life and thought of early modern Europe and its empires. Here, too, the Dutch loomed large, masters of the waters as they were. It will be evident that this research has informed my present approach to a question which has meanwhile enlarged itself like Topsy. How are we to explain the Industrial Revolution that brought the early modern period to an end? Listeners who suspect a damp fuse burning in the Low Countries leading to subsequent fireworks across the North Sea and Atlantic will not be on the wrong track. My TLS essay had begun, "The United Kingdom stands on the threshold of its future, apparently immobilized by an idea about its past. That idea is Britain's separateness from the rest of Europe." This is not a theme the political currency of which has meanwhile faded. England's Troubles had challenged this idea as it might have been entertained by historians of the nation, New British historians, Anglo-American Atlanticists, and/or J.G.A. Pocock, a field in his own right. Since then, much important work has explored European, Atlantic, and global contexts for early modern British history and the relationships between them. The present book considers how by interaction both with the United Provinces of the Netherlands and with its own unique colonies in temperate climate North America, Britain became the site for a revolution that changed the world. Thus, whereas England's troubles attempted to understand as the first and third among its three subjects the destruction and then reconstruction of the British military fiscal state, the present study discusses the disappearance and subsequent replacement of an entire social, economic, and political way of life. While the context of the former study was European, that of the present one is global. This must be emphasized since this book concentrates upon the transatlantic subsection of a global process of European empire building within which, for the Dutch, its East Asian component was prior, larger, and wealthier. Similarly, within the British Atlantic theater, I emphasize the key demographic, cultural, and economic role of a northern and continental subsection, although its southern and Caribbean zones were as colonial possessions much more profitable. The reasons for this is that my subject is not a place, but a process. Thus, the explanatory focus is upon a connected sequence of social, economic, cultural, and political developments which may be called Anglo-Dutch-American early modernity. This introduces us to another theme of the present study, as true of Dutch agriculture as of British Empire, that what proves to be historically transformative sometimes derives not from the first or traditional path of success, but from a harder road of struggle. Although it uses some archival sources, this book is not a research monograph, nor does its author read Dutch. Like England's Troubles, it is an extended three-part analytical essay, predominantly based on printed primary and secondary material. It is not a history of the Industrial Revolution, but an engagement with the early modern European life and world to which that revolution put paid. That engagement takes the form not of a survey, but of an argument, directed to the question posed by my title. For the early modern Netherlands, the historian is blessed by a rich and sometimes brilliant literature, much of it available in English. Dutch, as much as English historiography, has distinct and characteristic emphases. Neither is particularly strong on the history of the other country, which makes understanding this world-changing transnational relationship the first challenge. My modest encounter with American history here was doubtless stimulated by 7 years in Pittsburgh, originating site of the 7 Years' War. In addition, my approach and choice of materials have been influenced by my involvement in Auckland since 2009 with the course History 103, Global History. For all this, the book remains discernibly, if not in explanatory focus, then in its approach, expertise, and limitations, a study of early modern England and Britain in European, Atlantic, and global contexts. As such, it develops some established personal interests concerning the historical importance of the physical environment, in particular water, the interconnectedness of politics, culture, and ideas, the Anglo-Dutch relationship in general, and the transformational impact of the English Republic of 1649 to 53 in particular. The book's second new challenge, to set these themes within the contexts of economic and social history, has taken the author out upon an ocean. But the attempt is important, not only because people in the past did not live their economic, social, religious, political, and cultural lives separately. Here that truth is encapsulated by the migrations within nations, from countryside to cities, across Europe, the North Sea, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, by means of which ideas and historical practices were transmitted, modified, and connected. One pleasure of the present study has been to engage with long-range social and economic analyses which are better than political histories at transcending chronological and geographic/national boundaries. Yet within these broad comparative frameworks, there remains a need for more emphasis upon the explanatory importance of particular developments, contrasts, connections, and events. This is, finally, a book about the Republican prehistory of the Industrial Revolution. This may seem surprising, since relatively few recent British political historians have acknowledged either the profound importance or the specifically Republican character of the mid-17th century English Revolution. If the first Industrial Revolution occurred in Britain, and if Britain has never had a genuine experience of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?